us now. For more on this, Darren Lynn joins us now live from Houston, Texas. Hi, Darren. Just bring us up to date with the latest on the storm.
As you mentioned, Laura is now considered a tropical storm, far from the Category 4 hurricane when it made landfall in Louisiana on the coast and in East Texas. So the situation right now is that people are trying to pick up the pieces from all the destruction. Laura came to shore as a Category 4 with 150-mile-an-hour sustained winds, destroying buildings, crumpling trees and power lines, as you mentioned. 500,000 residents in Louisiana are without power right now. Another 250,000 residents are without power in East Texas. And the process of getting that power back on could take weeks. And in addition, in Louisiana, 250,000 residents are without running water, so that could pose a health problem. The Centers for Disease Control says tonight they are warning residents who have a home but don't have power to be cautious. People are using gas generators, propane tanks, gas tanks to cook food, and one of the pitfalls is that if you're not using them correctly, you could create carbon monoxide poisoning. In fact, one of those 6 deaths that you mentioned was because of carbon monoxide poisoning. In addition, the folks now have to worry about the storm surge. It came in as a 9-foot wall of storm surge that went 30 to 40 miles inland. And for that to recede is going to take several days, which will hinder rescue crews from going in and doing their rescue search and trying to find those who held out and hunkered down for the storm, because the possibilities that there are going to be more deaths once this is all over.
Right. Just moments ago, we were seeing pictures out of Orange, Texas, where it seems like a lot of damage has happened. What's the situation like where you are in Houston?
Fortunately for Houston, Laura bypassed us. Originally, the track was coming directly to Houston, and then over the course of the 24 to 48 hours before it made landfall, it veered about 200 miles east of Houston towards, as you said, Orange, Texas, and to Lake Charles, Louisiana, causing massive flooding. Some of the pictures that you're seeing right there, these cars that are under the floodwaters from the storm surge and the heavy rains. In addition, the heavy winds blew over many of those vehicles, the cars, the trucks, the RVs, like they were mere beach toys. In addition, the trees were snapped in half, buildings were completely leveled, and some of the taller buildings, the windows were blown out by those strong winds. So picking up the pieces is going to be very difficult, because here in Houston, we went through Hurricane Harvey about 3 years ago, and it took months for cleanup to take place. And even now, 3 years later, people are still going through the rebuilding process. So this is going to be a very difficult situation for folks in Louisiana and East Texas.
And they're also dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic as well. How are they dealing with the damage caused by this hurricane and the pandemic on the other hand?
This is a double whammy. Normally, after each of these hurricanes, I've covered Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Ike, Hurricane Rita, Hurricane Harvey, and after each event, you have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that are displaced from their homes. They need shelters. In this case, the officials in Texas and Louisiana are trying to space out and social distance those shelters, also putting up folks in motels and hotels. But obviously, with 500,000 residents who have evacuated and don't have a place to stay, now they're forced to be in situations where they're with people that they don't know. So some people could come from COVID-19 hotspot areas and are now intermingling with people from non-COVID-19 hotspot areas. And both the state of Texas and Louisiana say they're going to be suspending COVID testing right now. So really, it's going to be a crapshoot as to who has COVID, who doesn't, and is the spread going to get worse once all of this settles.
Darren Lynn, thank you so much for bringing us up to date with the latest on Hurricane Laura out of Houston, Texas.